Fat Gene is your new welterweight champion of PFL, and he went on Ariel Helwani's show and said, the PFL is on par with the UFC, we can hang with the best of them. I don't agree with it, but what I do appreciate is everything Thad said about his relationship with Christ, his spirituality. It seems like he's going to God in all things, but let's go over why he thinks, and is it true or not, that the PFL and the UFC are comparable in any way. I've got some things to say. First, let's talk about Thad himself. He almost lost that fight several times. He was all sprawled out. His opponent, Rodriguez, had his back. It was looking bad. Like, you see a lot of people, a lot of great fighters get finished in that pose. When you're all sprawled out and stretched out with your belly to the ground, there's not a lot of places to go when somebody's laying on your back, sitting on your back, wailing on your head. So he didn't exactly win in a dominant fashion. I'm not trying to take anything away from him because he did win. And in fact, he finished his opponent. But when you think of the UFC, if you're struggling with the PFL, let's get into other people that went from other organizations into the UFC. Let's see how their skills did match up. Patchy Mix, Michael Chandler, and Will Brooks. Patchy Mix came over and it was the biggest talk of the town. He's gonna come over and run that division.
I think a lot of people consider you one of the best bantamweights in the world, regardless of where you fought. So
I'm one of the most hyped prospects that ever had come over. But maybe if the promotion didn't sell and all this stuff, I don't even know if I would have been able to get out to come over, you know what I mean? So, like, I guess, like, everything just worked out for a reason, and I belong in the UFC. You know, I am among, if not, I truly, full-heartedly believe I'm the best bantamweight in the world, and I need to be in the UFC to prove that.
I've never seen such a deflating opening fight in the UFC than this Patchy Mix guy. I was a little annoyed with him on the microphone. I remember listening to him and, oh, he's so cocky and so arrogant and so sure that he's gonna mop the floor with the UFC guys. They don't know what's coming. The guy pretty much left with his tail between his legs after not doing well in 2 fights, if my memory serves correctly. It's either 2 fights or 3 fights, but it did not go well for Patchy Mix. 3-time Bellator champion Michael Chandler was dominating. He comes over to the UFC and he did contend for a championship fight, but ultimately he would go 2-6 inside the UFC. It is just a different animal. You know, when you get into that top 5, you hear a lot of fighters talk about this. You could just see a different level. You've got people coming in and, you know, young hot prospects. Oh, they're the biggest, you know, they're the talk of the town. They come in and especially that top 5, man, they get cut down to size. Now, Chandler has done well. There's no denying he's sort of brought some entertainment value to the UFC, and he does put on big fights and very athletic. A hardworking guy, and I respect that, but wasn't able to have the same kind of success in the UFC as he was in Bellator, where he was champion. Will Brooks actually beat Michael Chandler twice. He comes into the UFC and goes 1-3. Another example where just because you're a champion in Bellator does not mean that it's going to transfer into an immediate UFC championship. And that was coming from a guy in Will Brooks who was 17-1 when he entered the UFC. 17-1, what an incredible record. And then he racks up 3 defeats inside the UFC. Man, that shows you the difficulty. This really is the top tier competitive division. Ben Askren has an incredible story, but his time in the UFC was not his most victorious. You know, obviously, he has an incredible story, and I want to cover people like him. I actually have a lot of respect for people like him over fill in the blank who, you know, championship fights aren't everything, belts aren't everything, and especially if you're a degenerate and you're cheating, not gonna name any names, but if you're cheating, if you're doing PED, if you're being a degenerate, I don't want to cover you. Somebody like Ben Askren is someone I do want to cover. So while he didn't have success in the UFC, he does have an incredible story. That being said, 2 losses in the UFC, 1 controversial win, 1 loss against Jorge Masvidal, which was the quick knee to the face, and this other loss was a submission loss. So you know, big prospects, big wrestling prospects. Sometimes the skills just don't transfer over to dominance inside the UFC. Eddie Alvarez, Yuri Prochazka, and Kayla Harrison all came from different organizations, Ryzen, PFL, and Bellator, if I'm not mistaken, but 3 other organizations nonetheless, and they were able to capture championship gold, pardon me. So there is obviously merit in these other divisions. I'm not here to crap on other divisions. It's great if you have competition within different companies, different organizations. That's a great thing, but all in all, it is very difficult to get to the top. And when you have a guy like Yuri, such a unique talent, man, I love watching him, a dominant fighter like Kayla. Eddie Alvarez, he was in the headlines just before I started watching, unfortunately. I started watching around 2020, 2021 in that area. Reinier de Ridder, another guy that came over and has had massive success, looks like he does belong here. But these are maybe the exceptions to the rule. All that being said, I'm not here to crap on Thad Gene. In fact, I wouldn't be covering him if I didn't have some level of respect for him. What really struck me wasn't necessarily his belt or his victory. It's the fact that he is a high-performing athlete and he's constantly giving glory to Jesus, talking about his spiritual walk.
Being Christ-oriented, I was like, God, okay, let me stay good. Let me stay down. Let's remember that this is still a fight. This guy still wants to beat me. And, you know, as much as I wanted to, you still had that, you still have that thought in the back of your head, like, oh, this is still going to be a walk through. It's still going to be a cake through comparison to what I had before.
And doing so fearlessly, that I do have a lot of respect for. And that's the kind of fighter that I want to cover. I would love to get a camera crew, hire a couple more people and go cover these guys, go in person. I do have a documentary channel and I'd love to really pour more money and effort into it, but it takes cameras are really expensive. So if you'd like to support, please do so on that channel or on this channel. That channel is Only Productions. I put out high effort, very lengthy, long. It's very difficult to create a good documentary, but I put a lot of effort into them and I love doing it. Subscribe there if you want that high effort. And here, this channel is just for MMA. It's just for UFC, mainly UFC. We cover all sorts of stuff in the fight world. Appreciate you. Subscribe. Talk to you soon. Oh, wait. Go outside, touch grass. What's my catchphrase? Train hard and kick butt.